Hey leaders, how are you? Hey, quick message here. Great stuff happening. Obviously, if you're at the View, just a mind-blowing event. You never want to miss a national event. You can't even put words to it. Absolutely amazing event. But I wanted to talk real quickly. We've got a lot of new people getting started, and I want to talk real quickly about what to do before and after a presentation. So you've done a great job. You've invited them. You've got them there. They're coming to a live presentation. What do I do next? Now, the first thing is when you get when you get them to, let's say you're going out to Kokomo's Mall of America for a live presentation. You've got them there. You've got to go through that three-step setup. Absolutely imperative. Every single time, go through the three-step setup. If you're doing a one-on-one, three-step setup. You're doing a two-on-one, three-step setup. If you don't know what the three-step setup is, get a hold of Scott Ross's CD. Ask your upline, how do you find out what the three-step setup is? And then get great at it. See, the difference is you got to get great at it. If you can get so good at it because you practice it over and over and over again, and the big key with the three-step setup, guys, is you've got to, it's a transfer of emotion. If they can feel your emotion, if that person can feel the emotion in your why, boom, that's powerful, guys. Now, next thing you want to do is during your three-step setup, you're going to edify whoever's doing the presentation that night. If you can find out who's doing the presentation that night and say, hey, we're going to hear from Angie Cuff tonight. She's been able to build a business to the point where she gets paid to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. Or David Helgeson, he's a 24-year-old kid who's making a six-figure income with this idea part-time. Edify the speaker. Now, once you get into the presentation, here's something imperative, guys. Sit in the first 3 rows. If you're at a big presentation, you want to do whatever you can do possible to make sure you and your guests are in the first 3 rows. If you're in the back, there's distractions. There's people picking their noses. There's people making out. We've seen that. There's people geeking out on their phones. There's people standing up. There's people eating dinner. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens at presentations. You want your people in the first 3 rows. If you want to be on time to the presentation. If you're running late, call someone and say, can you save me some seats? Here's the other thing, guys. If I had 3 or 4 guests, if I got more than, say, 2 guests coming to a presentation, and we got a lot of people bringing 3, 4, or 5 guests, that day I would call some people in my upline, and I would say, hey, I've got 3 or 4 or 5 guests tonight. Can't obviously handle them all after the presentation. Are you going to be there to support me? Now, here's a little secret, guys. If you call someone in your upline and they don't call you back, you can virtually guarantee they're not a leader yet. They haven't developed. See, leaders call people back right away. If you call someone and ask them that question and they don't call you back, that's okay, guys. You don't have to be mad at them or be angry. That just means they're not a leader. They haven't developed themselves where if a leader, a scale of 1 to 10, they might be a 3 or a 4, and that's okay. They're just working on themselves. But call someone else who is a leader until someone calls you back, and maybe get a hold of a couple people in your upline and say, hey, I may need some help tonight. I got 4 or 5 people coming. And then prep them a little bit. Say, hey, I've edified you. I'm going to edify you to these people. I'm going to prepare you to meet them. I'm going to talk about you beforehand. You might want to just go, oh my gosh, point out that person. Let's say, there's Angie Cuff. We might get a chance to meet her afterwards. Maybe that might be better than just introducing someone right away. It's not a right or wrong thing, but you edify that person and you prepare the expert and say, hey, after the presentation, maybe just buzz by my chair, take a walk by, and if I need you, I'll say, hey, do you have a minute? And so what happens is you're ready to go after the briefing. So you've edified, you've done your 3-step setup. You're going to sit, if you have more than 1 guest, you sit between them. Don't ever let 2 guests sit next to each other if you can at all possible, because guess what? One may be negative, one may be positive, and the negative one will drag down the positive one if you let them. So sit in between them. During the presentation, you're deadly focused. You don't get up. You don't look at your phone. You give that credibility to that speaker, and the more you're into it, like it's your first presentation ever, and you're leaning forward, and you're excited, and you're laughing at the jokes, even if you maybe heard them once or twice, act as if it's your first time. And the more energy you give, the more your people are going to give. So the more excited they're going to be. Now, when the presentation is over, here's the key, guys. First thing is, when the presentation's over, don't move. Do not get up. Whatever you do, don't get up. Don't move. Stay seated right where you are. Maybe you turn your chair a little bit so you're not at a funny angle so that you can kind of chat with your person. But that's all the further you would ever move. And then you simply ask them, make a statement. Now you can see. Now you can see why I was so excited for you to get a chance to see this idea. Now you can see why I asked you to come all the way down here to Kokomo's. Now you can see why I drove all the way to your house to show you this. Now you can see, or that was awesome, wasn't it? You make a positive statement, and they're probably going to say yes to whatever you say. The next thing you do is imperative. Let me tell you the number one reason people don't get started in World Ventures. The number one reason is no one asks them to look. Okay, that's obvious. But of the people that look, the number one reason they don't get started is after the presentation, no one asks them to get started. See, can you imagine? I'm a guy, so I'll speak from a guy's perspective. Can you imagine going on a date and getting all the trouble to make a good first impression and ask them out and be polite and open doors and bring flowers and clean your car and go to a nice restaurant and pay for dinner and pay for wine, and then at the end you don't ask for the kiss, you don't ask for the relationship to continue, you don't ask for another date? That'd be crazy. And it's crazy to invite people out to a presentation and go through all that work and then not ask them to get started. But that's the number one reason people don't get started, is no one asks them to. You have to ask. So you got to get good at being confident about asking, and you expect them to sign up. And the whole presentation, you're thinking, they're going to say yes, they're going to say yes. And when it's over, you say, now you can see why I wanted you to come down and see this. Isn't it amazing? And they're going to say yes. And then you say, are you ready to get started? And after you ask that closing question, you zip your lips. And all you do is you smile. And you look them right in the eyes. And you wait for them to say yes or no. And whatever they say, if they say yes, you've got to have a folder. When you got your folder, it's sitting with you in your presentation, or you got a satchel if you're a gal, you got something that has paperwork in it. You got Living Proof magazines, you got some CDs to give them if they get started. You got maybe a sign, a You Should Be Here sign to take a picture with them when they get started, or give them the sign. I invest in my people. I think that's a good idea. And you gotta have applications, hard applications. I recommend personally, I think you should have a paper application. You have the applications for the product, and you have the applications for the business partners above 25 and below 25. And the bottom line is, when it's over, if they say yes, you just simply grab that application that's for that person, depending on their age, and you put it on top of a folder. You hand them the folder, you hand them a pen, and you say, great, fill that out. I'll be right back. I've got a couple other guests here I'm going to go chat with. And then you talk to your next guest, or you get up and you go grab a glass of water, give them a little space, and then you come back, you grab the paper. Now, if they have objections, that's where your timing and placement sheet comes in. It's absolutely imperative you have a timing and placement sheet. I would recommend that you figure out and take some of the training videos in on how to use that, okay? But the main thing is, guys, you got to ask them, are you ready to get started? And then you use your timing and placement sheet to show them what they're going to miss out on if they don't get started, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, please ask your upline and plug into the system, okay? Now, if you've got objections and that person's got objections, and your upline, the leader that you prepared earlier, comes by your seat, you simply say, oh, do you have a minute? Can I get a second of your time? And you introduce the two people, and then you shut up and you let that person help you maybe overcome those objections while you listen and learn. So it's that simple, guys. You got to ask, and you got to be ready with your paperwork. So that's that, guys. We've got some phenomenal stuff coming up with the regionals and momentum, and it's going to just absolutely blow up in the new year, guys. Here's what I want you to do. If you watch this video and you're all in and you want to run with this deal and you'd like to get residual income, or you'd like to get your BMW, what I want you to do right now is I want you to film yourself doing your best 3-step setup, and I want you to shoot a text to me with that video, and I'd love to watch your 3-step setup. Otherwise, email it to me at cuffsean@yahoo.com. I want you to film yourself doing a 3-step setup, and then I want you to watch it and see where you can improve. And then in a couple of days, you film yourself again, and you watch it. You don't have to send it to me. Watch it again, and then film yourself again, and then watch it again. And when you get so good at that 3-step setup, and you get so good at asking people, are you ready to get started? And you know that you're going to go with or without them, and they know that you know that you know, they know that you know that you know that they know that you're going with or without them, and you have that urgency, and they can see it in your eyes that you're going to rip this deal with or without them, they'll say yes. All right, guys, have a great night. Have a great week. Take care, and God bless.